Hi everyone, and welcome to today's session. Today, we're going to take a look at how the Mend platform can integrate with a number of identity providers, such as Okta. The way we do this is through SAML integration to be able to provision users and groups with the correct role entitlement. We don't work with just Okta, but any IDP tool which supports SAML integration. So join me today as we take a look at the technical documentation to do this. We will integrate the Mend platform into Okta, create the application, create users and groups, and then test out the integration. So before we get started, in the documentation portal, docs.mend.io, we have a platform onboarding guide, which essentially lays out two key areas for integration with Mend in your environment. Firstly, we have the cloud repository integration, and then we have pipeline integration. Now, with the cloud repo route, we typically only recommend administrative access to the Mend platform because all of the developer experience and focus is directly within the repository. However, if you're doing CI/CD pipeline integration, this may be a combination of administrators and developers who require access to the platform for a number of reasons. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. When you are invited as an administrator to a brand new Mend organization, the email you'll receive will first of all ask you to create a local username and password. You'll get signed on and the organization will look a little bit like the following. Of course, we've not done any repository or pipeline integrations at this point, so there's no data within the dashboard. This is a really good stage to then begin the integration with single sign-on. So as an admin, if we go to the administration area, SAML integration, and click edit in the top right, we can now begin exchanging data from Mend and Okta in order to get the application configured. So if we head over to the Okta environment, signed on as an administrator again, we just need to go down to applications and create a new application integration. From here, select SAML 2.0 and click next. I'm going to call the application Mend platform. I'm going to upload the Mend logo just so people can recognize the application. Once that's done, go ahead and click next. So now we need to head over to the Mend platform to copy the callback URL and paste that into the single sign-on URL within Okta. Go back to the Mend platform, copy the identity ID, and then within Okta, paste that as your audience URI. Scroll down, and the first thing we need to do is map an attribute statement. So I'm going to call this email address. And the value is going to be user.mail. Under group attribute statements, I'm going to just simply call this group name. And I want to use a regex match on all of my groups. So what we're going to do here is send all of the groups which the user belongs to, who has access to the Mend application, and then we'll assign the correct roles on the Mend side. So that's pretty much everything in this form here. You can go ahead then and click next. Make sure you flag this as an internal application and then hit finish. Go ahead and copy the metadata URL and then paste that within the sign-in certificate URL of the SAML integration page in Mend. Finally, you need to define your company email domain, and you can add multiple domains if you have those within your company. I'm going to go ahead and use this domain here, and then we can go ahead, scroll down, and under group, we just need to put group name again, so it matches the attribute within Okta. Go ahead and save this configuration. We can see SAML saved. So now we can go back to Okta and just check some of our users and groups. So if I expand my directory, I've already got pre-existing groups in my company. So I have a squad development method, I have a repository squad, a developer squad, and depending on your organization, you may have these groups existing already. So rather than having to create new group names, what we can do is just make sure that group who are allowed access to Mend are matched to the application. So first of all, I'm going to add a new user. I will say Sam Smith, and that would be Sam Smith at the domain we mentioned earlier. And then I'm going to add this user to a couple of squads which they belong to. So let's go for the dev squad. And I'm currently just going to set that password to a value I know already. But of course, best practice is to invite the user and not set that by yourself. So now that user's been created, we can go back to the application area, click on the Mend platform, and let's assign groups to this application. So click Assign, Group. Let's go for the Detection Squad, Dev Squad, and the Repo Squad, and click Done. So anyone within these groups will now have access to the Mend application in Okta, and then we'll have to assign the correct privileges in the Mend application. And we confirm Sam has been created, and he's inherited by the group in this area. Finally, just before leaving Okta and testing it out, if we head over to multi-factor, it's always recommended to enforce MFA. So I've enabled that with Okta Verify here. And under my default policy, I've requested that multi-factor is turned on by default, which again is a best practice for security, especially when accessing SCA and SAS data from any of your applications. So let's open a new incognito window, sign on with SSO, and it was Sam Smith at looprogan.co.uk. Click continue. Provide that email again with the password. So now we've been redirected to our organizational page. We can then click sign in. And that SAML user has now successfully authenticated onto the platform. So if we head back to our Mend organization with the original administrator we saw earlier, head over to administration and then click on groups. We can see that dev squad has now been created with the entitlement from Sam. Simply click on the group, assign the correct role by clicking add role. And in this environment, I would like to give them full administrative access. And moving back to Sam's profile, if we now click refresh, they will have admin rights to the organization. So I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to help. Thank you and goodbye.